And I want to talk to you guys about evidence, video footage. What is your opinion on what we've captured so far? Is there anything compelling enough to you guys to have totally made up your mind? For me, not really. I think the most credible footage I've seen is the Patty film, the Patterson Gimlin film. But I still flip flop on that every time I watch it. I've been watching that thing for years, and every time they enhance it and slow it down and show muscle movement, and I go, yeah, absolutely. And then I watch it again and I go, to me, the first thing I thought of when I watched that film, the way that Patty turns and looks, what do you do when you're a kid and you're in a Halloween costume and you've got a mask or a pillowcase or something over your head and you got little eye slits that you're looking out of and you can't see very well? You don't turn your head to move around, because if you turn your head, you lose the eyesight through these little holes. It doesn't line up, right? When you're a kid, if you've got a mask on, you turn your whole body to look because you didn't want to move your mask. And when I watched the Patterson Gimlin film for the first time and she turned like this, her whole body, that's what the first thing I thought was, hey, that's a dude in a suit, and he's trying to look through two little eye holes, and he doesn't want to shift his head because then he can't see. But the more I watched this film and I saw muscular movement and things like that, and the injury on her thigh and all these other things, I flip-flop. I'm back and forth on this all the time. What do you guys think about the film footage that we've captured so far? I know there's some other good stuff. The Freeman footage, that to me is as close as it gets, guys, to the Patty film. That I flip-flop on that too. I don't know. I think there is some real compelling stuff. And the other one, I think they call it Independence Day Bigfoot, where there's a baby, looks like it's been picked up from behind a rock, and then the Bigfoot scurries off. Again, it has some pros and cons for that video as well. So there's nothing that has convinced me 100%, but it totally leads to the possibility. I think what would convince me the most is exactly what we're out here doing, and that's drone footage of a family of these things out in a remote swamp, and they all scatter when they see the drone. Everybody running in a different direction, in thigh-deep water or something, fighting their way through the brush, and you can see all this. That, to me, would be definitive, hey, those are real animals, and they're running off. Other than that, I don't know. So that's what I'm trying to capture. Would that convince you guys if I captured something like that? I don't know. I would probably only end up convincing myself because I'm the only guy who would know 100%, is this fake or real? Obviously, it's going to be real. I'm wasting a lot of time and money on this, but, I would be the only guy to know that for sure. Just out and about, traveling the back roads north of Capreol this morning. Used to work at a mine up here, so I know a lot of these back roads. They're pretty remote, lots of swamps, lots of empty bush area. It just goes on for hundreds of miles north of here, same as at home. We're a couple hundred kilometers from home this morning. I was up with the sun. I just thought it'd be great to get some droning in. I wanted to do a couple of things. I wanted to look at farmers' fields. We were talking about migratory Bigfoot. And the only way these things would be able to migrate south of here is to use the corridors, the ecotones they call it, where one ecosystem meets another. And along the edge of farmers' fields and that, you get these brush lines that are never cut. And those are to denounce one guy's property from the next, right? They used to sell farms in a minimum of 160-acre lots up here. So to get between neighbors, they would leave, 20 meters of bush. So every one of these farms up here has strips along the edge of it. And that's one realistic way that these creatures could move. The deer use those all the time. The fox, all these little animals that are hunting in the fields, they use those to live and move without being seen by humans, even when you have towns just on the outskirts. So I did a bunch of droning through fields and hit some swamps this morning, and I'll show you guys that footage. But I just wanted to talk about what we were talking about before, and that's migratory animals. And I think it absolutely makes sense that they would follow the herds of animals. And the herds of animals are using these corridors along the farmers' fields and things. So that might be a great place to look as well.
So I'm just trying to debate whether I think that the migratory hypothesis, these animals following herds of food and using corridors along the edge of cultivated land to follow that food, makes more sense than animals that hibernate and live in a cave system underground. Because honestly, I think that's more what my belief has been, that these things are living in hidden underground places that we just don't go. And they come out and use the forest to hunt animals and whatnot. If we go with the traveling, following the herd hypothesis, we'd have to assume they're like moose and deer. They're not building any kind of home base. There isn't anything more than the odd rudimentary wood structure that is found, and we don't even know that that's Bigfoot making those. Obviously, there's no houses, or they're not building a permanent structure anywhere. So, but that being said, the migratory hypothesis would explain why these animals are seen in, rural human areas where there is little villages and people and things. Why? Because they have to be there. They're following their food. They have no choice. So that makes sense too. I don't know. I'm just trying to sort out, guys, what really makes sense from a biological standpoint. What are their needs? How do they address these needs? What is the proof? What have we found? What have people found and videoed in the past? And what would explain sightings around humans and things like that? Because obviously these things don't intermingle and don't want anything to do with us, and yet we have thousands of sightings, including sightings that are of curious animals coming up to houses, banging on windows and doors. Is it a territorial thing? Are they just trying to move the humans out of their area? That could be the answer to that. I don't know. What do you guys think? The other thing that needs some serious consideration is the growth rate of the young. So if these animals are going to migrate, I would assume they're fairly slow growing creatures like humans. You have a baby, it's pretty useless for the first few years. So we're talking about having a baby in the summer months and then packing up and migrating hundreds or 1,000 kilometers. Who knows? We don't know the distances. That doesn't make sense to me either. So I don't know. You wouldn't be able to travel and hunt and raise young, I don't think, while moving around and remaining undetected from humans, moving into more and more populated areas. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm just freewheeling my thoughts over the last few days, guys, and I think I'm kind of on the hypothesis that these things would have a home base somewhere, would live somewhere where they could raise young and be undetected by humans, stay as far away from humans as possible. And you might get the odd, hunter out on his own that you're going to catch somewhere following a herd of deer or whatever, That I don't know. I'm trying to piece it all together here. I also had a viewer from Britain send me another story. It's not a Bigfoot story, but it is a monkey story. It's a strange one, but she actually did some research and kind of tied it all together to real events and things that happened in the past. It's a very quick little story here, but cool and interesting, and I'm going to add that for you guys just to have a quick look.
Hi Gary, I love your channel on YouTube and thought I'd share my story with you. I did not actually see Bigfoot. I have lived all my life in England. I am now in my 50s. During the period of 1987 to 2001, my daytime job was in an office that was situated on a former WW2 USAF airfield in Suffolk, England. This airfield closed after the war, and several buildings, including where I worked, had later been converted for modern day use. One Saturday morning, I turned up to work. I was the first person to arrive there, and as I opened the gates to the premise, I heard what sounded very much like a baby crying, over in the woods, perhaps 20 yards distance. I knew I'd have to go look, so I wandered through the woods. The cry would suddenly stop as I got within a few yards of the source. I'd then stand stock still, then it would periodically start up again. Surely a very young baby crying out. Each time it would get further away, then eventually it stopped altogether. I returned to my workplace and put it out of my mind. Maybe a fox cub, who knows? I saw nothing. Years then went by uneventfully. I used to take my dog in with me to work most days, and at lunchtimes walk her over the airfield, which was just deserted, open scrubland mixed with overgrown, dusty concrete runways. One such lunchtime as we wandered over the scrub, about 20 yards ahead of us, what looked like a little pink naked man about 18 inches high popped up in the tufted grass. It immediately took off and ran away from us. He ran upright, arms swinging by his sides in the fashion of a sprinter. He had a little domed head and it was thin build. I did not see his face. We, the dog and I, stopped dead in our tracks to watch it. He ran quickly, ran maybe 5 yards down the track away from us, then darted off the footpath to the right over to some hawthorn trees and disappeared into the undergrowth with a rustle of dry leaves. He was gone. At the time I was going through divorce and part of me thought I'd imagined it due to stress I was under at the time. Perhaps it was in my imagination. Roll on 17 years and I was looking at online images of the old airfield and in one was a small capuchin type monkey that traveled in a particular B-17 bomber as a lucky mascot. Further research led me to find that the exact same spot I saw it was where that particular plane with the monkey mascot parked overnight before each mission. The entire crew were lost in 1944 on a mission over Germany, but there is no mention of this monkey's fate. Did I see its ghost? Best wishes, Karen.